Everybody is complaining in Paris. People are on strike over the price rises and the lack of fuel. Can't you just hear the rising strains of revolution?
These troubles are justified, because while the people work themselves to death to scrape a living, the bosses and big industrialists are growing fat in record time. And all we can do is grin and bear it.
These ideas did reach the front, but what pushed the French army towards mutiny in 1917 was a history of poorly planned and ill-conducted battles. The final straw was a doomed attack devised by its own commander-in-chief, General Robert Georges Nivelle.
The offensive alone can give victory. The defensive gives only defeat and shame.
On the 16th of April 1917, Nivelle ordered over 1 million Frenchmen to attack a heavily defended German-held ridge known as the Chemin des Dames. After storming this ridge, Nivelle expected his armies to smash through 7 miles of German defences.
We were faced by a forest of wire. Machine guns appeared everywhere. There were traps of every description. The ground was impassable.
"40,000 Frenchmen were killed in the first days, but Nivelle ordered the assault to continue. Casualties reached 150,000 by the 5th of May. Then the men snapped.
I am one of the most persistent in spreading propaganda. I know that I am risking my hide, but by this means I might save it. My darling, say with me, down with the war that separates us, and long live the revolution that in bringing peace will reunite us. I love you, and I don't want to die.
The village of Coeuvres, 20 miles south of the Chemin des Dames. The mayor watched what happened when the 370th Infantry Regiment was ordered to the front.
The soldiers spilled out into the whole village, screaming with rage, firing rifles and singing the Internationale. Towards morning, they formed columns and made their way to the woods.
By June 1917, half the French army was affected. Men refused to return to the trenches.
We seemed absolutely powerless. From every section of the front, news arrived of regiments refusing to man their trenches. The slightest German attack would have been enough to tumble down our house of cards and bring the enemy to Paris.
But the Germans had no inkling of the French mutiny. It was a massive intelligence failure. Four days after their mutiny, the troops from Coeuvres gave themselves up at a nearby village.
They emerged from the wood in perfect order, in columns of 4, all flawlessly groomed and polished.
The French soldiers' actions were more like a strike than a mutiny. They won important concessions, better leave arrangements, more rest, improved medical conditions.
All we wanted was to call the government's attention to us, make it see that we're men and not beasts for the slaughterhouse.
Nivelle was sacked. His replacement, General Philippe Pétain, reversed French strategy, making defense the order of the day. The men were given patriotic instruction and reminded why they were fighting. But Pétain also knew that discipline had to be restored. The tactic was to execute a few, but force thousands to watch. Photographs taken secretly at a French military execution. A man is tied to a post. The order is given to fire. Soldiers are paraded past the body. Louis Flourac was one of the 49 death sentences carried out. He was shot here in Chacrys by his comrades, some of whom hated what they were doing.
I see the dead every single day in the trenches, but this is different. I'm a man who has shot his friends.
Italy's soldiers were also growing war-weary. But unlike its French counterpart, the Italian High Command saw punishment as the only way to maintain morale. Chief of Staff General Cadorna was merciless.
Every soldier must be convinced of the fact that his superior has the sacred duty to shoot all cowards and recalcitrants immediately.
Cadorna's iron grip led to massive discontent. For months it simmered below the surface, until the Battle of Caporetto in October 1917. The Italian army was hit here, in the Isonzo River Valley, by a massive Austro-Hungarian German attack. Resistance in armies took many forms. The Italians didn't openly refuse to fight. They just began surrendering to the enemy en masse.
By dawn, we were surrounded, and the Germans finally took us all prisoner, and we were happy because we had saved our lives. Farewell, Italy. Farewell, family. I am now in the hands of the Germans.
A young lieutenant in the German Alpenkorps, Erwin Rommel, took over 1,000 Italians prisoner without firing a single shot.
The soldiers threw away their weapons and hurried to me. In an instant, I was surrounded and hoisted onto Italian shoulders. Evviva Germania sounded from 1,000 throats. An Italian officer who hesitated to surrender was shot down by his own troops. For the Italians on Mersey Peak, the war was over. They shouted with joy.
I am writing this at 11 o'clock at night, most comfortably ensconced in the Italian officers' mess. There is a huge stock of delicious wines which we are getting through in record time, so I hope there is no question of a counterattack. We've captured machine guns, heavy artillery, and personal weapons. These are of the highest order, but show little sign of actual use.
Some 300,000 Italian soldiers surrendered in the winter of 1917. As many again retreated down these mountain tracks with fleeing civilians.
They stroll past with their hands in their pockets. When questioned, they all say that they've pulled out because they were told to. Who told them? No one knows. The next man along.
What a terrible and heart-wrenching sight it was. The poor women with their little ones bundled up, walking towards Italy to save their lives.
Italy's high command sacked General Cadorna and regained control by easing discipline and making concessions to the soldiers, as the French had done. But the price of unrest was high. The fighting strength of the Italian army had been halved. And while governments wrestled with unrest at home, they were also stirring up trouble abroad. Britain had been plotting to destabilize the Ottoman Empire since the war began. Ottoman Turkey was Germany's ally in the Middle East. Her empire stretched across Arabia into the Hejaz, a vast desert area which included the holy cities of Medina and Mecca. Their loss would seriously undermine the Turks' standing in the Muslim world and boost Britain's. The British turned to the Arabs of the Hejaz, holding out the carrot of independence if they rose up against their Turkish masters.
If the Arab nation assists England in this war that has been forced upon us by Turkey, England will guarantee that no internal intervention will take place in Arabia, and we will give Arabs every assistance against foreign aggression.
The idea of Britain backing Arabian independence worried the India Office.
A strong Arab state might be more dangerous to Christendom than a strong Ottoman state. And Lord Kitchener's policy of destroying one Islamic state merely for the purpose of creating another has always seemed to me disastrous.
The India Office needn't have worried. Kitchener was playing a cynical game, never intending to hand real power to the Arabs of the Hejaz.